the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
We're back on High Ash Farm, and Chris Skinner has got the broadest grin you'll ever see.
It's from ear to ear, that wide. Matthew, the swallows have arrived. You have arrived in the farmyard, and we've just got one flying above our heads somewhere at great speed. They've made it back, and it's almost like my birthday. I celebrate the arrival of a swallow right above our head.
Over the horse's paddock.
Skimming out, covering a huge distance in a very short amount of time and flying almost between the horse's legs. It was a cool, frosty morning here, first thing, and they had been sleeping in their barn and heading out west, right over the top of the hedge there, just skirting round and flying over the muck heap, which is one of their favourite spots to pick up insects. There's lots of flies on there already, minute little flies, and they're feeding on what I call aerial plankton, tiny little flying insects. They don't perch up to feed. But why I get excited is the building behind us is special for them. It's an old pentile roof. I've converted some of the new stable roofs into double roofs so that they don't get too hot. And I've done a lot of work to help sort of encourage them and make sure they breed successfully. And that's partly why I daren't tell all the ladies here. That's why the horses are here, because that means I can have the pasture. The horses poo on the pasture. That attracts the flies. The flies get eaten by the swallows, and the swallows are my delight, just simply because of what they do. You almost feel summer's here when they arrive. They arrived on Tuesday, so just a few days ago, just one solitary one at 12:35, wrote it in the diary. It's 2 days earlier than last year, which was 2 days earlier than the previous year, so there seems to be a tendency for them to arrive a little bit earlier.
We have had an extraordinary run of very bright, sunny days, haven't
Yes, although the wind's been in the north, and I thought that would deter them a little bit, but the daytime temperatures are a bit higher, and that helps a lot because swallows follow this invisible line of temperature. It's called the mean temperature, and it's 12 degrees C. That's the difference between the lowest temperature at night and the highest temperature in the day. And once it gets to 12 degrees, that average temperature, then you get lots of flying insects, and that's what feeds the swallows, in other words. But the reason I get excited is because they're tiny little birds. Imagine a kilo bag of sugar in your right hand, and in the other hand, to balance it, 36 swallows. That's how light they are. And even 40 swallows, once they arrive from the migration, they lose a lot of weight. So they start off right down in South Africa, probably about a month ago, 5,000 miles away, and fly northwards and come up through Africa, across the Sahara, about over 1,000 miles. And once they cross the Med, even southern Spain, which is part of their migration route, the climate there's changed. It's very dry, very arid, almost as though the Sahara itself is spreading northwards. So it's a difficult and hazardous journey for them, particularly if you get northerly winds over the Sahara coming down off the Alps. You can have this headwind, and many of them don't make it.
So to find food, their fuel for the journey
Yes.
is becoming more difficult.
Exactly, because they can't do that, over 1,000-mile journey from Senegal down south of the Sahara, sub-Saharan Africa, in other words, to get to Tunisia, which itself quite hostile for them. They can't do that without feeding on the way. So if anything hazardous like a dust storm gets them, that will down them onto the desert floor. I've been down there, I've studied the migration route, and I'm just fascinated by this tiny bird with a brain smaller than a pea, and yet they come in complete pinpoint accuracy to the point where they were born in the stables behind us. That is, why I love nature. It's full of surprises.
It's miraculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are just a very few birds have arrived so far, but these are the forerunners, aren't
Yes, they are, yes. So generally, most of the ones that are here are males, and you can tell the males, they have this long tail stream. It's quite a bit longer than the females. When you have the young swallows emerge, they have very short, stubby tails, so they're easy to tell, and they'll be getting on with it straight away. As soon as the first females arrive, they'll pair up, and you see these crazy sort of flying events around the farmyard at great speed, twisting and turning, and then you get flashes of that lovely blue-black on the back of them, the cream-coloured chest, the bright blood-red sort of gorge just under the chin, and when the sun's on them, if they're gathering mud in the farmyard, they actually reflect, and it's a beautiful sort of sheen on the plumage. So really attractive, sleek birds, kind of symbolise summer, and just love them to bits. So that's why I'm excited this morning. That's why you got this huge smile. But why not? It's what this farm is now doing. It's sort of welcoming all the forms of wildlife, which I absolutely love. And you've just been spoiled. Is that the first one you've seen?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, had
first
to be
one of
high-ish.
the
Yes.
start of the season. Yes, I know you're very competitive on this.
No, not really, because wildlife kind of belongs to everybody, and I love sharing it. And I just share what I feel, if that's possible to say. And it's just something special that the farm isn't just to produce food or get an income from it. It's much more than that, and you always feel you're a custodian of the countryside. And if I can leave it a little bit better than I found it, bearing in mind there were horses working here through my father's childhood, and I got a lovely picture of him ploughing with 3 horses and a 2-furrow plough, and it's gone, quite hostile in the environment, the way modern farming's developed and is still developing, and so there often isn't much room left for wildlife. And I'm doing the Norfolk motto. We're just looking down the hedge right beside us, and there's sparrows all the way down it.
Yes, maybe just 1 or 2 swallows so far, but there are dozens and dozens of sparrows living their best lives.
Oh,
there,
they
aren't
are. Well, the scientific name is Passer domesticus, the domestic bird, and you won't really find the sparrows without some humans nearby, and the whole hedge is peppered with them. And anyway, it shows that you can change things, because I got down to just a single pair of sparrows about 30 years ago and decided to do something for them. Anyway, it's busy here at the farm. I can hear the blacksmith right behind us.
Got a horse getting a new set of shoes.
Yes, and the smoke coming off. They're hot shoes going on.
We've got all the sparrows. We've got the odd forerunner of hopefully a big population of swallows that are arriving. We've got beautiful blue skies, bit of sunshine. It's a bit cool though in the shadows, but really looking forward to this week's visit.
Excellent. Right, so we're heading straight off in the truck, and we're going to be visiting one of the wildflowers, which stops flowering about lunchtime. So we're going to have to get a shift on. Come on, Matthew.
Gorgeous day. It's perfect viewing conditions for your buzzards, isn't it?
Oh, Matthew, I've got 4 nests on the farm. That means there's 8 adults here at least. And whichever way we're looking at the moment, there's one there, one just behind us, and they're just enjoying this early morning sunshine. Just sort of flying round. That one's going to be intercepted by the local carrion crow, I think. And they're just circling round almost without flapping their wings. There is quite a northeasterly breeze this morning, but they're making the most of it and circling round at about 200 feet. Incredible eyesight. Being able to spot their prey from up there, a small rodent or even something like a worm. They do spend quite a bit of time on the ground, which surprises people for a large bird of prey. But our retinas have about 200,000 little light receptors per square millimetre, and a buzzard has over 1 million, to give you an idea of the difference. And if their eyeballs were sort of proportional to ours would be about the size of tennis balls, to give you an idea. They have incredible, although the eye, the bit you actually see isn't particularly large, it's a huge kind of golf ball inside the head with all these light receptors in, highly sensitive eyes, and the same with lots of birds of prey as well. But that one's almost gone into a dot into the distance in a very short time. It's flown a good half mile away, but hugely successful. Moved into the eastern counties. As I said, 20 years ago, it would have been a red letter day to see a buzzard. Rats, terrier has joined us, jumped out of the car, and I think he's objecting to some of the walkers. It's half-term holiday. A missile thrush just flying over the top of us.
And I think we saw a red kite just now,
Yes,
briefly,
we did.
didn't we?
Yes.
Maybe the red kites don't like the buzzards being
No,
around?
they detest each other, to put it politely. The buzzards will see the kites off, so we've yet to have red kites nesting on the farm, but I don't think it will be very long. Do you know what? I didn't come here to talk about birds of prey to this particular spot. I said we'd got to get a bit of a shift on because we've got wildflowers on this bank. Visited it several times before as a site of early violets and dog violets, all sorts of different wildflowers, lots of hemlock in the background. The violets, the sweet violet, Viola odoratus, finished flowering. You can see the little heart-shaped leaves over there. And there's a rabbit warren right beside us. And if I just walk up to the sand, and I'm just going to show you what farmers call light sandy soil. I'm just going to scrape a bit with my hand, hold it up into the breeze and let it go, and it's kind of egg timer sand, just blowing away, completely dry. Norfolk has only had a tiny percentage of rain, the normal rainfall at this time of the year, right from early March, and we're now in the second week of April, and we're actually drought-stricken almost. But there's a plant here which loves it. The drier, the better. And here we've got a little clump of it. It's very, very beautiful and quite tiny. The flowers are about the size of my little fingernail. A beautiful pink shade.
Oh, it's all over here, isn't it?
Yes, there's hundreds and hundreds of them. And I'll just pick a leaf off one of the plants. Like, there we are. And you can see it's hugely divided leaf, tiny little foliage, almost prostrate on the ground. And each leaf stalk has a little leaflet coming off each side of it equally, all the way up, and they're divided right down to the central vein. So very delicate foliage. Its name, it's sad that it begins with common because it almost detracts from its beauty. It's called common storksbill. What an all these wildflower names have these really strange names, but often there's a reason to call a plant with a particular name.
Oh, and are they common?
Yes, on sandy soil. The sandier the better. It's got a beachside cousin as well, which is called sea storksbill, and that grows on sand dunes. But it's actually got a really lovely perfume. If I describe the little flowers, there's 5 or 6 petals, and it's really aromatic. I don't know if you can pick up a scent. And there's some flowers just to the right of us, and the wind's just gently blowing towards us. It's very delicate, very aromatic, and so it's very attractive.
I am getting it, yeah.
Yeah, bees and butterflies. It's really very, very nice indeed. So that's something you wouldn't normally see. So the flowers are kind of, I don't know what colour we can call them, it's kind of violet pink colour. And each, where the petal joins the little stem, and the petals are only 2 or 3 millimetres long each, about an eighth of an inch. That makes the whole flower head much less than half an inch across in total, much less than that. So I said about the size of my little fingernail, but this beautiful pink colour. So at lunchtime, so I came at 6 o'clock, there was nothing in flower. At lunchtime, there's no flowers here at all, and all the petals will be laying on the ground. So it's in flower just early morning till about lunchtime, till about midday. Then the petals fall off, and you get the next flush the next morning. So it's got quite a long flowering period of about a fortnight. But once it's finished flowering, it does something unusual, which is why I brought you here. And this is where the name comes in. Now, if I lay down on the ground, I should almost... I did bring a magnifying glass, but like normal, I left it in the car. Now, these are the seed pods. Have a look.
They're tight. Oh, I see. Yes, great big spikes.
Yes.
Stork's bill.
Oh, well done, you got it. So there's the reason that it's called stork's bill. Just forget the common bit in front.
Such a small plant, but those are about an inch long, those
Yes, they are.
stork's bills.
Yes, about 3 centimetres long at least. And because it's drought-stricken, here's an even better example. There's 2 there, almost joined together at the base. And so there's your stork's bill, and it does look exactly like a stork's beak. So I'm laying right down and got my little finger there just propping them up. Now, these plants, like many, have sort of fascinating habits. So as this little beak dries, it will separate off from the little cup that holds it, where the flower was, and it springs into 3 separate little strands. This is where it gets interesting. The strands, as they dry, form a corkscrew. The seed is on the base of the little corkscrew, drops onto the ground, wait for it, screws itself into the ground.
You're joking.
I know. No, it's fascinating. I've watched wild oat seeds crawl across the ground after a heavy rain. They sort of have an aum on it. This is rather different because it forms this corkscrew straight away once it's split away from the parent plant. So each of the 3 little divisions that occur has a seed on the base of it. It then drops onto this sandy soil, almost drought-stricken, and it doesn't matter. So each night you'll get a dew, and the little corkscrew will unwind a little bit, and then as it dries out, it winds back up again each day in the warm sunlight, and gradually buries itself for next year. So once you look closely at these, the plants are not just beautiful, which these are. I mean, this is as good as you can have in any rock garden. They're just stunningly beautiful. But once you see what they do, the habits they have, it just brings a huge smile to my face, and it's lovely to be able to share it. So I invited Laura Cuffin down here first thing this morning and said, will you come and photograph my stork's bill flowers? The rat's objecting to me talking about this. He wants to be in full attention. Come here, you. Good, I've got him. And poor Laura, the things she has to do, but she'll take some of her amazing photos and it'll be on High Ash Farm Facebook for this Sunday's podcast, together with those amazing seed heads. She's got a little macro lens, whatever that is, no idea. She's got all the gear, but I've got the wildflowers.
Well, it's a perfect partnership, isn't it? So, common, in inverted commas, stork's bill.
Yes, there you go.
But it's very uncommon way of propagating itself.
Yes.
Getting like a corkscrew and digging itself in.
I know, yep. Just wonderful. So pleased to share this with you. We're drought-stricken, but this plant is up and laughing and saying, this is perfect conditions for us. Well done, common stork's bill.
We're going to stay in the farm pickup for this little section, Chris, because this is a bit of long-distance bird watching.
Yes, we're fairly high up on one of the hillsides with a valley in front of us and a lovely row of oak trees on the far side of the field, only about 100 metres from us. And you can see just to the right of the last oak tree is a big old oak stump where an oak tree snapped off, must be 50 years ago, and a little pile of sand in front of it. And remember, 2 weeks ago, we did a podcast quite close to that spot. There's little owls nesting in that corner of the field. And the stoats that we saw, I've discovered where their nest site is. So I put the camera there and managed to capture the female stoat going in and out of the nest once or twice, but she's moving so quickly, the video's a little bit too short to put on the Facebook page, Ash Facebook. Anyway, I was busy watching in daylight, not expecting to see the stoat, and suddenly female kestrel dropped down out of her nest box and found the sand there and thought, well, there's no water about, so I'm going to have a dust bath right in front of the camera on that little patch of sand that we can see.
You couldn't get a closer view. I've seen the video and it is terrific, and I would advise anyone to look at the Facebook page and see the bird in her full glory.
Yes, it's perfect shot, the right distance from the camera. So I burst out laughing. She sort of laid on her side and fluffed up as much of the dust as she could. And it's a good way of getting, if you're incubating eggs and you've got a few feather lice in there, if you get the dust in and then stand up and give yourself a good shake, then the mites, this tiny little microscopic irritant inhabitants of your plumage get dropped off in the dust, and so it's a well-known feature that many birds adopt. Anyway, she's incubating in that box that I put up. It was originally a kestrel box. Jackdaws occupied it for 2 or 3 years, and this year it's back as home proper for the kestrels.
There's a green nesting box there about 15 foot up that tree, isn't there?
Yes, it's in the fork of the tree. Kestrels are amazing birds, the way they've adapted themselves to lots of different habitats, and you can see them right into central London in the London Square Mile. There's dozens of kestrels nesting, and they'll feed on sparrows, so their choice of food is rather different to the ones out in the countryside. So they've adapted themselves really cleverly. Just on the outskirts of London, there's a pair of kestrels nesting, and they're flying about 5.5 miles. Distance doesn't seem to be an object for them to feed around a sewerage farm where there's lots of insects and worms as well, so they can feed. And then, I just saw some movement. Let me just put the binoculars back up. I think the male kestrel has just arrived. She's got her head just in the box. He just flipped up and he's gone round to the other side of the tree now. Not because we're here, we're too far away to disturb them. So kestrel, really successful. I suppose it's our commonest bird of prey in the UK. And another adaptation is the grassy areas beside motorways, and that's probably where most people will see a hovering hawk. And kestrels, being falcons, have this amazing ability to hover even in quite a stiff wind, keep themselves completely still. Beautiful birds. The male has a grey cap on top of his head and a gorgeous sort of brown, chestnut brown on the back, and both the male and the female have a sort of black circle around the tip of the tail, very noticeable when they're flying and the tail is opened out to sort of help steady them. And the female kestrel is rather different in her plume. She doesn't have that grey head, a grey cap on the head, but what she does have is a mottled, speckled, brownish back with black spots all over it, and that's the one you'll see on the High Ash Facebook. But amazing birds, and I've seen them hovering over the fields here. They're looking for worms. Again, that incredible eyesight with a very large eyeball, although only part of the eye is visible to us. It's quite a large eyeball with a large retina on it to get really good. And they have to have good eyesight, because if you're looking for a worm or a beetle and you're hovering at 200 feet above your prey, then it will, if it spots something that's worth dropping down, maybe a small mammal, like a long-tailed field mouse or a vole, they'd be top prey for them. Slow worms, small grass snakes are all on the sort of banquet list for the kestrel. If it's hovering up there, it will perhaps drop 20 or 30 feet and then have another look, and if it's good to go, then it folds its wings up and pounces down onto the prey. If it's a small mammal, the talons close over it, very sharp claws, which if the actual impact of the hit hasn't killed the small mammal, then the claws certainly would. And then normally it will fly off and eat it on a perch somewhere in peace, or in this case, if it's a male kestrel, he'll be feeding the female. The male will incubate as well. He will give her little relief breaks. Incubation of the eggs, and there's usually 3, 4, 5 eggs in a nest. Again, another unusual habit of the kestrel is the female, when she lays the first egg, will often start incubating the rest of the clutch, which is really unusual, but it's a kind of defence mechanism, which I'll explain. She will then lay the next egg 2 or 3 days later, and then the following one. So egg laying can take up to 10 days almost in some cases. So the first chick will hatch out, and if there's a food shortage, the first chick, block your ears everybody, will eat some of the other ones that have just hatched, the weaklings. Sorry.
Well, this is nature in tooth and claw, isn't it?
Yes, so that's what can happen.
They've worked it out over the generations,
yes,
that survival is that's the best way.
Yes, and if one chick survives, it's much better than losing the whole clutch if they all hatched out together. So the biggest is often inherits the next generation.
The mighty will inherit the earth.
Oh, well, yes, all right. Yes, it seems very unfair, but it works, so it's a sort of survival technique. The eggs are sort of brownish with sort of brown speckles all over them, sort of a bit of olive green in the background, and heavily speckled. And so she will do most of the incubation, which takes about 28 days. So it's quite a long incubation period. And from hatching to fledgling is also about another month. So the whole nesting process with the young in the nest box is from egg to leaving the nest box is 2 months. So a lot of work goes in to feeding them. And once they've hatched, they're covered in the little falcons are covered in a kind of grey down, which they shed after about 10 days, and then a second coat of down comes, and then the third molt will be into their proper plumage, and mum and dad will carry on feeding them even when they've left the nest box. But they're delightful to have, and I've always been fascinated, watching them. High Ash is a windy place. It's high with all these valleys and hills on it, and with all the hay fields here and the pastures, there's adequate supply of small mammals for them. So I watched them hovering even in the wind, and I thought, well, how do they do this? And we had an experience on one of our podcasts over a year ago. We were looking at barn owls, and we came across a barn owl on a windy evening, and it was in front of our truck in the headlights, and it was hovering with its head looking downwards. And I thought, how's it doing that? And actually it was flying, but at the same speed that the wind was coming into it. And that, I had to scratch my head to try and understand what I was seeing.
So in effect that was a hover, but actually kestrels are true hoverers.
Yes, they certainly are. As I said, that's the most likely bird of prey you like to see beside a motorway on those uncut grass verges, but it is a true hoverer. So just amazing. But forget that it's still. Just imagine that the kestrel is flying forwards at the same speed the wind is coming in towards it. And then you can understand how the hover mechanism works a little bit more. But it's still amazing, even in a wind, the body will be swinging about quite violently to keep the head in one position, so to speak, so it can look down and focus carefully on the prey.
It's like it's got its own gyroscope. The head stays absolutely in one place.
Oh, yes, so it's it's an avian miracle in what it does, is the only way to describe it, and that's exactly what it is. We're coming across lots of amazing things this morning, but we're not going to disturb her by trying to go up close. And
we can just about see her outline there in the box, and the male is around there somewhere.
The male's there, and he's on kind of guard duty, and he's coming about every hour or so with some morsel, and he will take over so she can have a kind of toilet break. As you will see on the High Ash Facebook for this Sunday, she will come and have a little dust bathe, and perhaps he takes over duty. It's unwise to leave your eggs uncovered at any time. They're grey squirrels, stoats right underneath, which I'm sort of bursting to get a proper video of the high ash stoats. They're so entertaining, but the stoats are running a risk because kestrel will take prey almost as large as itself. They've been known to prey on turtle doves, collared doves, small mammals obviously, but also stoats and small grass snakes and weasels in particular.
So our sunbathing stoat is actually at risk, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. It's really hard to get your head around nature and to understand it and to love it at the same time, but stand back, and nature knows best.
We'll stay in the pickup for this little piece as well, because we've got some of your letters and emails to answer in a few moments. The ducks at High Ash Farm going in to roost for an evening. Hey everyone, it's Matthew here, and if you've been enjoying our countryside podcasts, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yes, Matthew. What we're going to do is to ask for a small donation to help run the podcast, and any surplus goes for conservation at High Ash Farm here. And so it's really important. We'd both love to keep the podcast going, and that duck agrees with me, I think.
Well, it's straightforward to donate. You can make a one-off donation or set up a small monthly contribution, and the address is highashfarm.com/podcast.
We're hugely grateful for any support. It means we can keep sharing the stories of the countryside, which I love doing each week, but it's that small amount of costs we need to cover. So thank you very much in advance.
Well, we've got two marvellous hares, haven't you? Maybe 30 yards away there, Chris.
Matthew, it was yesterday morning at the same time. I checked this field to see if it was ready to cultivate, to get ready for overwinter wild bird seed mix. And I watched two hares boxing only 100 yards from me. And suddenly my eye caught another one coming to join in the boxing match. Obviously it's a female in season, and before I knew it, I had the most amazing spectacle of 11 hares jumping and jostling and chasing each other in great fury in broad daylight. And it carried on for ever and ever. I watched them for about 20 minutes. I was meant to be working, but what a distraction. It was so fabulous to watch. And the buck hares, obviously one of them had chosen the female as his new partner to mate with. And he chased off a buck, and then another buck arrived, and he was kicking and jumping in the air. And it was just such a joyful sight to see this. And we've got two in front of us. They're listening, I think, to us because they're so close. And just a beautiful sight. Oh, one's just got up and moved. The other one's run towards us a little bit. Just wonderful. So we can answer some questions. And if there's any activity...
There's the London train going.
Yes.
That must be the 10:30 London train. There's about 10 carriages, and here we are within sight enjoying this as well. I don't envy them at all, those people on that train.
No, this is truly wonderful, but I think we're spoilt. But it's a way of sharing everybody's countryside. The wildlife in it obviously was wild. It belongs to everybody, and one of the hares has just scooched off a little bit, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of frenzied activity. They're both peacefully carrying on, but you can never tell with hares. They're kind of eccentric, and if the buck gets too close to the doe and or the jack and the Jill's a female hare, she will box back at him, and anyway, they're just loping off very peacefully. So just a lovely sight on a sunny morning.
And maybe they're all worn out after yesterday's boxing match. A big thank you to everyone once again who's supported this podcast through your very generous donations. And there's more details on the website, highashfarm.com/podcast. And, well, the conservation projects all benefit on the farm. And, well, one of the conservation projects is this very podcast.
Yes, it is indeed. And it's a way of sharing the Norfolk countryside in particular with a much wider audience. And I feel very privileged to do that. And if we have any excess funds from the donations, I've already pointed out to you one new area of annual wildflower mix, which will go in about 10 days' time. And once the tiny seeds are in, then we need to do a rain dance, Gudgeon. I hope you're good at that.
Well, the hares look like they've gone now, so should we stand outside and talk about the emails that we've got?
Get out in the sunshine. Just fabulous.
We didn't want to scare the hares off, so just here we go, out into the open, because it is a beautiful morning. We've got all this blue sky and the wildlife going on around us as well. And an email from Jan Howells, who lives in Norfolk. 2 years ago, I planted some conkers in the compost heap just to see what would happen. There are now 25. They range from about 1 foot to about 4 foot. They're all coming into bud and look very healthy. My husband, though, would really like his compost heap back. So would you like some, Chris?
Well, yes, I think I can arrange for them to come to High Ash, although conkers, or horse chestnut as they're more properly called, they're not a native species. They come from sort of Greece and the sort of Western Mediterranean as their home territory. But nevertheless, they're beautiful and very attractive trees. Again, one of those tree species that's suffering from a kind of canker disease, where you'll see a kind of black sap coming out of the trunks. It splits open, and it's rather a worrying thing for one of these beautiful chestnut trees that come into flower with those wonderful candelabras. But the trouble is, it's a little bit late to be moving them, to transplant them, and particularly into dry soil. So I think I'm going to have to exempt myself till the autumn, and then we'll be able to take delivery of them. So your poor husband is going to be compost heapless for this summer anyway.
Here's one from Jeff Palmer. We live near Swaffham and look over a water meadow. The River Wissey is about 300 yards off. We have a pond which we keep netted to keep herons off. There were 60 large koi some 30 years old ago, but now only 7 remain. Using a wildlife camera, we see that an otter has found this as a wonderful source of food. Any ideas, the easy ways to deter before we decide to fill in the pond when the last fish goes?
No, not really. There's nothing I could recommend. It's a very hazardous thing for an otter to do, particularly if you're near roads. I know you've got the river nearby, which is a suitable habitat, but it is really tricky. And we've just drove past the lake here at the farm, and we've had otters in there, and they've cleared most of the fish out. But it's a kind of natural thing to happen. It's a bit like putting bird feeders up and attracting birds into a particular area. Your koi carp are obviously really valuable to you, but they're equally valuable and a complete source of food for the otters. So I'm going to have to stand back on this one and say let nature take its course, but then leave the pond open. You don't hopefully need to fill it in. Seems a bit dramatic to do that. Such a valuable resource for lots and lots of other creatures, including dragonflies.
We'll head off to Willow Farm near King's Lynn now, and Jamie and Leslie Porter, who have heard already the twittering of a swallow. It's no April Fool's joke. They arrived on the 1st of April on Tuesday. What a lovely sound. Regarding the person on this week's podcast worrying about her sparrows disappearing, this happened to us very early in the year, and we were most upset. However, they've all come back, so that's encouraging.
Yes, and the comment at the end of the letter is exactly what I said. There's probably a sparrow hawk in the area and deterred the sparrows, and I've taken measures at the farm, so the hedges around the farmstead itself, back at High Ash, half a mile away from us, the hedges are all cut very short and tight, and so the sparrows feel quite safe in there, safe from the local sparrow hawk.
An email from Richard Turkington, who's got a couple of puzzlers for you. First of all, how high can a blackbird jump? This isn't a joke, unless you can come up with some sort of punchline.
No, not really. They will sort of prance across the lawn with their head on one side, looking and listening for worms, and they will kind of jump up in the air occasionally. Lots of bird species do that, but only perhaps about a foot at the most. They've got quite long legs and quite strong legs. They're perching birds, and so Turdus malea, the scientific name, but I don't sort of have any hard and fast figures at high jumps for blackbirds. I've been asked lots of questions, and I smile sometimes at some of them, so no hard and fast answer for that one.
Well, Richard has got 3 acres of land, and he's got every intention of rewilding it, and he's going to plant a tree in your honour, Chris, and of course Rat as well.
Of course. And yours too, Matthew.
Well, the second question, how long does it take a queen bumblebee to find a suitable nest site, and how far does she have to fly on average? You do see them a lot at this time of the year.
Yes, you do. Just as we arrived and got out of the truck, there was a bumblebee flew past us, and they'll be hunting for a suitable nest site. Remember, they've been hibernating underground, usually in a mouse burrow, often covered in soil. I've seen them in the woodland in autumn actually bury themselves in the peaty leaf litter, where they spend the whole winter, kind of damp and cold in there. So when they emerge, it's just the mated female queens that will survive the winter. The workers and the males all died off last year. She then bumbles about very close to the ground, and she's using her wings to kind of sound out any suitable nest sites. So she'll keep hunting, perhaps for a few days, to find a correct site, usually fairly close, though, to where she was born and spent the winter. It's obviously the right habitat. It worked for her last year, so she'll try and replicate that for her generation, which she'll be rearing this spring. So usually, certainly within half a mile of where she spent the winter is about the distance she'll fly, and it can take any amount of time, and it's weather dependent, because she can't fly about in really cold weather, although bumblebees have kind of almost an invisible coat of fur on them, and they can work at much lower temperatures than our honeybees, which lack that sort of furry body.
We've got an invitation to a village which is about 10-15 miles away from here in South Norfolk, and Ron Brewer lives at Old Buckenham. He says, why don't you bring the programme here? We've got a very large village green. That's one of the largest in Britain, I think. It's 40 acres, he says, containing woodlands, open grassland and several ponds. And there is a magnificent rookery, which I can testify to, sometimes going that way. 150 active nests we have, says Ron, and a recent piece of mixed woodland that was planted around 40 years ago. There's also Old Buckenham Fen, which is a treble SI.
Oh, yes.
Site of special scientific interest.
Absolutely. Those areas always interest me. At the moment, the podcasts are based at High Ash Farm, because at this time of the year in particular, we have a job to keep pace with the way nature unfolds itself. And
plus, we need a passport to go to Old Buckenham.
Well, yes, it's past Stoke, which is the next village, and
you get a nosebleed if you go 5 miles away.
I probably just look down there, Matthew. Oh, we've got 2 Chinese water deer, and they're being followed by 2 hares, and the hares are moving about quite quickly. I think the Jill, or the female hare, in front there is a bit worried about the attention she's getting from the male there. So we might, before the finish of the
Might
pod,
get fisticuffs.
we might do. Yes.
Oh, there they go.
There they go. Yeah, she's running off. He's in hot pursuit. And this is what happened at this time yesterday. And this is what caused the melee. That those 2 running around. Close encounter then, but no boxing.
So it's the classic standing up on hind legs.
Yes, it is that we've missed. There can be moving about like that will attract all the other hares on this field. And
we know at least there are 2 or 3 up here as well.
yes, there is. Yeah, they suddenly appear out of the woodwork, but they've gone right down into the bottom corner now. But I just felt my phone buzz. It vibrated a little bit, so I'm just going to turn it on because I think we just had a text come through. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's turned itself on. I think it was a message. Let's have a look. Messages, inbox. Tamsin from Tasmania. Would you like to read it?
Oh, let's have a look at the phone here. Hi, Chris. Just listening to this week's podcast for the 3rd time already. Love them so much since you both went... where are we? Please do go off on tangents.
Oh, right.
I think of the questions as a springboard for other subjects. What about that? Give Rat a pat for me.
Oh, right.
A message...
All the way from south of Australia, Tasmania.
Van Diemen's Land. Oh, lovely. You're very welcome.
Yes.
And that's what I said to Chris. Digress away. Finally, we were talking about a tree last week, weren't we, that's been pollarded for many generations. And you said that it was called the Africa tree.
Yes.
And here's a message from Andrew, Annika, Wren, Juno and Woody the dog. They live only a mile or so away in Lakenham on the outskirts of Norwich. So really they're next door neighbours here, next to the River Yare. I was listening to the podcast and recognised the tree you called the Africa tree. However, my 9 and 7-year-old daughters prefer their name for it. Do you want to know what they call it?
Go on, tell me.
The butt cheek tree.
Oh, that's rude. And I can see why, though. It does look rather that way, but to me it's a perfect map of Africa.
Well, we'll go off and have a look at these hares and maybe report back next week. But fabulous visit once again, Chris. Thank you so much for another wonderful countryside podcast. And what have you seen?
And there's a bumblebee. Just to finish us off,
great
just
fat
bumbling across the top. It's a queen, hare running across in the background, 2 more hares running towards us from a distance, 2 Chinese water deer there, and if you walk this way, Matthew, 1, 2, 3, 4 hares just down in the valley. It's all waiting to do what nature does at this time of the year.
Well, send us an email. The address, as always, chris@highashfarm.com. This very sunny, very beautiful weather, allowing a lot of people during the school holidays to get out and about, but you'd like some rain.
Oh, absolutely. We've got to do the rain dance before the next podcast. We're desperately dry. You can see the overwinter wild bird seed mix there is just fading away now, ready to be reseeded, but the ground is so hard. You know what farmers are like? It's either too wet, too dry, or even when you get a good crop, they say, just think what that's taken out of my land.
Listen to those seagulls. I think the tide's coming in.